The dominion of unified stars did not hate humans. Hatred required respect, and respect required threat. Humans were classified under Annex 17 of the Dominion's Expansion Codex as a low-impact sapient species, a designation reserved for civilizations that possessed faster-than-light capability, but lacked the political cohesion, military doctrine, or cultural discipline to endanger galactic stability. Their entry was brief, almost dismissive. Bipedal, mammalian, emotionally volatile, mythologically excessive. A species that told itself stories to survive the universe rather than mastering it. Their worlds were scattered, poorly defended, and largely irrelevant. Their fleets were small, their technology functional but inelegant, their governance fractured. The Dominion had conquered far worse. So when reports came from the outer reaches of a human agricultural colony refusing compliance with imperial taxation protocols, the matter was delegated not to a fleet, not even to a planetary pacification force, but to a single kill team, Unit K-47, dispatched more out of administrative necessity than strategic concern. The order was routine: suppress resistance, neutralize leadership, confiscate resources, leave infrastructure intact if possible. A simple enforcement action against a species that still named its settlements things like Hollow Creek and Pine Ridge, as though geography itself could protect them. The colony existed on a world that barely warranted a catalog number: dense forests, low mineral value, minimal orbital traffic. Its human population numbered fewer than 3,000, most engaged in subsistence agriculture and localized manufacturing. There were no planetary shields, no defense satellites, no visible military installations. K-47's dropship cut through the atmosphere unchallenged, its hull gleaming against the sky like a god descending to correct a mistake. Sensors mapped the settlement in seconds. Wooden structures, metal hybrids, no energy signatures above civilian thresholds, no organized resistance. The team disembarked at dusk. They were efficient creatures, the Dominion's soldiers. Tall, jointed, armored in composite plates that adapted to incoming threats before the threats were fully registered. Their weapons were calibrated to neutralize targets with maximum lethality and minimum resource expenditure. They had ended rebellions before breakfast on worlds, whose populations dwarfed this colony by orders of magnitude. The humans did not flee. That was the first anomaly, though it barely registered at the time. The soldiers advanced through the settlement's outer perimeter, boots crushing gravel and fallen needles. The air smelled of sap and soil. The forest pressed close, trees growing unnaturally near the buildings, their branches forming a loose canopy that blocked the stars. Dominion sensors adjusted for low light, painting the world in sharp contrasts and data overlays. Movement was detected. A group of humans, non-combatants by all classifications, stood clustered near one of the larger structures. Children were present, small, fragile. Their heart rates spiked, but they did not scatter. Instead, they watched. Then something moved between the trees. It emerged without sound. At first, the soldiers' systems categorized it as indigenous fauna: large quadruped, mammalian, dense musculature. Scarring along its flanks suggested prior injuries, likely from environmental hazards or territorial conflict. Its fur was dark, matted in places, its frame heavier than expected for a creature of its classification. A dog the translation matrix supplied. One of the soldiers laughed, a harsh clicking sound transmitted across the team's shared channel. "Humans deploy animals," it remarked. "Primitive defense strategy." The dog stepped forward. It did not bark. It did not growl. It did not bare its teeth or posture in the way most territorial creatures did. It simply placed itself between the soldiers and the humans behind it. Its eyes reflected the ambient light, but not in the way the soldiers expected. There was no panic there, no confusion, no instinctual aggression. There was intent. The Dominion's threat assessment algorithms recalculated. The creature posed no measurable danger. Its mass, speed, and bite force fell far below the threshold required to breach even the weakest armor plate. The soldiers raised their weapons anyway, more out of protocol than necessity. The dog moved. It crossed the distance faster than its bulk should have allowed, launching itself at the nearest soldier with a force that briefly spiked sensor readings. Claws scraped against armor. Teeth clamped down on a forearm joint, not penetrating but locking with surprising strength. The soldier fired point blank. The energy discharge tore through the animal's torso, burning fur and flesh alike. The dog was thrown backward, hitting the ground hard enough to crack the packed earth beneath it. It did not rise again. Silence followed. The humans did not scream. They did not rush forward. They did not cry out in grief or rage or despair. They stood frozen, eyes fixed on the fallen animal, their expressions unreadable. One of the soldiers approached the body, nudging it with a boot to confirm termination. The dog's eyes were open, glassy now, staring at something beyond the canopy above. There was blood, dark, thick, soaking into the soil. Target neutralized, the soldier reported. Non-sentient fauna. Another soldier frowned, its head tilting slightly as internal diagnostics flickered across its vision. There was a temporal spike, it said. Brief. Localized. Environmental interference, the first replied. This world is unstable. They logged the kill and moved on. Behind them, an elderly human knelt beside the dog's body. Her movements were slow, deliberate. She placed a hand on the creature's head, fingers trembling not with fear but with something deeper. Her lips moved, whispering words the translation matrix struggled to parse. It caught fragments, a name. The system flagged it, cross-referencing the Dominion's vast cultural archives. The result was immediate and dismissive. Baba Yaga, human folklore entity, mythological, non-existent. The soldiers did not look back. As night fell, the forest grew louder. K-47 established a temporary command post within one of the larger structures, converting it into a fortified position with practiced efficiency. Drones were deployed. Perimeter defenses activated. The humans were corralled into a central area monitored but otherwise ignored. There was no resistance, no sabotage, no attempt at escape. That should have been reassuring. Instead, it unsettled the team. Human resistance in the Dominion's experience was loud, emotional, disorganized. Even when futile, humans tended to fight, to shout, to curse their conquerors and make grand, meaningless gestures of defiance. These humans did none of that. They watched. They whispered among themselves. They told their children stories in hushed tones, voices barely audible over the rustling of leaves. The content of those stories was not transmitted, but the emotional resonance was clear. Not comfort, not hope, but remembrance. One of the soldiers began to experience a low-level cognitive anomaly. Its thoughts drifted. Its internal chronometer desynchronized by fractions of a second. It dismissed the sensation as fatigue, though its species did not experience fatigue in any meaningful sense. Another reported auditory hallucinations, scratching sounds along the perimeter, though sensors detected no movement. Drones recorded nothing unusual. The forest pressed closer. Trees that had been meters away now seemed to loom just beyond the defensive line, their branches forming shapes that mimicked skeletal fingers against the dark sky. The air grew colder, though environmental controls compensated automatically. During the second watch cycle, the first soldier dreamed. This was unprecedented. Dominion soldiers did not dream. Their sleep cycles were controlled, optimized, free of the chaotic imagery that plagued less disciplined species. Yet the dream came all the same. It stood in a clearing that did not exist on the planet's surface. The ground was covered in bones, small, fragile ones and larger, heavier ones, all arranged in patterns that suggested intention rather than randomness. At the center of the clearing stood a structure that defied architectural logic, its supports shaped like legs, lifting it above the ground as though it could walk away at any moment. A woman stood before it. She was ancient and ageless all at once, her form shifting subtly each time the soldier tried to focus on her. Her eyes burned with a light that was not reflected but generated, illuminating the clearing in stark relief. "You killed my dog," she said. The soldier woke abruptly, systems flaring as it attempted to reconcile the impossible experience. It reported the incident to the team leader, who logged it as a psychological artifact induced by prolonged exposure to an alien environment. Then the others began to report similar dreams, different details, different perspectives, but always the same core elements: the forest, the bones, the woman, and the accusation. By morning, one of the drones had gone missing. No explosion. No signal loss. It simply ceased to exist within the network, its last transmission showing a static image of trees that did not match any recorded flora on the planet. The team leader requested orbital oversight. The response from Dominion Command was delayed. When it arrived, it was brief. Proceed. The humans were scheduled for relocation within the next cycle. The operation would be completed as planned. Whatever unease plagued the kill team was irrelevant in the face of imperial efficiency. As the sun rose over the colony, casting long shadows through the trees, the elderly human woman returned to the place where the dog had fallen. The bloodstain was gone, absorbed by the earth as though it had never been there. She spoke again, louder this time, her voice carrying into the forest. The translation matrix caught the words clearly now. "Come home," she said. Somewhere beyond the edge of sensor range, something listened. And the Dominion of Unified Stars, in all its power and certainty, remained unaware that it had just committed an act the universe would not forgive. The Dominion's oversight response arrived 37 minutes late, and in that delay, Unit K-47 ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not eliminated, not even officially classified as lost. They were simply gone. Orbital sensors detected no weapons discharge, no thermal bloom, no spatial rupture large enough to justify a catastrophic event. The dropship remained where it had landed, its systems powered down as though gently put to sleep. Inside, there were no bodies, no signs of struggle. Armor lay stacked neatly against the walls, unscorched and intact. Weapons were arranged in precise rows, their power cells fully charged. The soldiers themselves were absent. The Dominion's analysts were unsettled by the orderliness of it all. Violence, even efficient violence, left residue. Chaos. Entropy, this was neither. This was intention. As the anomaly propagated through the command lattice, similar reports began to surface from elsewhere in Imperial space. Patrol vessels along human trade corridors failed to report in. Listening posts near human settlements experienced data corruption. Files overwritten by fragments of folklore. Symbols that matched no known language, but triggered deep recognition patterns in the minds of those who saw them. Then the dreams began, not among humans, among the Dominion. High-ranking strategists awoke mid-cycle with foreign imagery burned into their cognition. Forests that stretched infinitely under alien stars, structures built of bone and wood that defied gravity, and always, always, the presence of something watching from just beyond perception. Medical scans showed no neurological damage, no infection, no chemical intrusion. The Dominion had no framework for an enemy that attacked belief. Emergency councils convened. Human cultural archives, long dismissed as curiosities, were reopened under highest clearance. Mythological indexes were cross-referenced with incident locations, timelines, and psychological reports. A pattern emerged. Wherever human stories spoke of guardians, of monsters that punished cruelty rather than rewarded virtue, the Dominion found gaps in its sensor logs. Missing ships, vanished personnel, silence, and at the center of the pattern was a name, Baba Yaga. Originally classified as a singular folkloric construct, the entity's profile expanded rapidly as data accumulated. The name appeared across human cultures separated by light years and centuries, always accompanied by consistent attributes. A protector of children, a punisher of transgressors, a dweller of forests and thresholds. She was neither hero nor villain by human standards, but something older, something conditional. A warden. Dominion xenotheorists proposed increasingly desperate explanations, quantum mimetic weapons. Psyops embedded in human cognition, distributed artificial intelligences masquerading as superstition. All were dismissed when the entity made contact. It did not arrive with a fleet. It did not announce itself with transmissions or displays of force. It simply appeared. A Dominion task force, dispatched to secure the abandoned human colony and retrieve data from the site of Unit K-47's disappearance, found its ships powerless the moment they crossed into low orbit. Drives failed, weapons went inert, even life support systems flickered, stabilizing only at the bare minimum required to keep their crews conscious. On every viewport, the same image manifested. A forest where none should exist, trees growing impossibly large, their roots entwined with the hulls of the ships as though they had always been there. And then she stood among them. Not as a physical intrusion, but as a presence layered over reality itself. Each species perceived her differently, their minds translating her form into something comprehensible yet horrifying. To some, she was a towering matron of bone and shadow. To others, a flickering silhouette whose edges cut like knives. To all, she was unmistakably aware. Her voice did not travel through air or vacuum. It resonated directly within neural pathways, bypassing language and protocol alike. "You killed what guarded my children." The task force commander attempted to respond, cycling through diplomatic channels, offering reparations, apologies, anything that might reassert control over the situation. His words unraveled before they could be formed, stripped of meaning by a force that did not recognize authority derived from conquest. "You do not know what you have done," she continued. "You never do." With a gesture that was not a gesture, she reached into the fleet. Soldiers vanished from their posts, reappearing moments later on the command deck. They were alive. They were also wrong. Some were ancient, their armor hanging loose on frames bent by centuries of weight. Others were impossibly young, their bodies reverted to earlier developmental stages, eyes wide with confusion and fear. A few did not reappear at all, their absence leaving holes in the ship's population registers that no system could reconcile. The message was clear, though it was never spoken. Time was hers to take. Panic spread through the Dominion faster than any contagion. Borders were sealed. Human worlds were quarantined. Information warfare protocols were activated, flooding networks with suppressive signals designed to disrupt human storytelling, to erase myths before they could propagate further. It failed. Human stories did not require networks. They required mouths, memory. Fear passed from parent to child in the dark, and humans remembered. Across their scattered colonies, people began to notice changes. Children who wandered too far from safety returned unharmed, escorted by a massive shadow that vanished at the edge of sight. Slavers and raiders found their ships adrift, crews missing, their logs filled with impossible coordinates that led only to empty space. The dog returned, not as it had been, but as it was meant to be. It walked between stars now, its form vast and insubstantial, its eyes burning with the same light that marked its mistress. Wherever children cried out in terror, it was there, standing between innocence and cruelty with patient inevitability. The Dominion tried to kill the story. They banned human gatherings, criminalized oral tradition, executed those who refused to comply. Each act of suppression only strengthened the thing they feared, feeding it with the one resource it required above all others: proof that monsters were real. In a final act of desperation, the Dominion's ruling council authorized a direct strike, not against humans, but against the concept itself. They deployed a reality anchor array designed to stabilize spacetime and collapse anomalous entities into deterministic states. It activated for exactly 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, the council found itself elsewhere. They stood in a clearing beneath an alien sky, surrounded by trees whose branches were strung with the remnants of those who had come before them. A house loomed nearby, elevated on great jointed supports, its door open in invitation or threat. She waited for them there. "You wanted order," Baba Yaga said, "so I will give you a lesson." They lived then as humans lived. They aged, they hungered, they feared for their children. They learned what it meant to love something fragile in a universe that did not care. They felt loss, not as data, but as absence that hollowed them from within. When they were returned, those who were returned at all, the Dominion was already collapsing. Systems failed without explanation. Subject species rebelled, not through coordinated uprising, but through quiet refusal. Trade routes went dark. Fleets stood down, their crews unwilling to provoke whatever watched from the edges of reality. No human armada ever fired a shot. It was not necessary. In the end, the Dominion amended its records. Humans were reclassified, their threat assessment rewritten in language that betrayed lingering fear. They were not a war species. They were a myth species. And the final entry, appended by an archivist whose hands shook as they typed, read simply, "The Empire killed a dog," and learned why humanity teaches its children to remember monsters.